In the early 20th century, Europe stood like a grand chessboard. Its monarchs, proudly dressed in military regalia, posing in brotherhood and opulence, as captured in the first image. Taken in 1910 at the funeral of King Edward VII, this photograph of 9 European sovereigns symbolized both the height of aristocratic diplomacy and the fragility beneath. Within just 4 years, this royal fraternity would fracture into a world war of unprecedented scale. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary and his wife Sophie, moments before their assassination in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914. Their deaths, seemingly a local tragedy, unraveled alliances and ignited old tensions across empires. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, pulling Germany, Russia, France, and eventually Britain into the conflict. Thus began World War I, born not only of one act of violence, but of entangled loyalties, imperial ambitions, and a photograph's fading peace. After the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo, a wave of tension surged across Europe. The gears of war began turning rapidly. German troops, dressed in field gray uniforms, marched through cobbled streets as crowds cheered them on. War was seen not with fear, but with fervor. Nationalism was high, and young men marched with pride, unaware of the horrors that lay ahead. By 1917, the war had pulled in nations across the globe. American recruits lining up after President Wilson declared war on Germany. The world had changed forever, and the true war was only beginning. As war erupted across Europe, mobilization swept the continent with startling speed. In image 45 Pikir Nanti, young British recruits, full of laughter and camaraderie, gather outside their barracks. Their uniforms are crisp, their faces filled with anticipation, unaware of the hardship awaiting them beyond the Channel. The tone shifts in 46 Belgium Soldier, where soldiers stand with weapons ready, expressions hardened by training. The mood is one of focused determination. Europe was no longer at peace, and each soldier carried the weight of duty. In 12 British Soldier enter Lille in October 1918, a sense of movement surges. Soldiers march through the streets of Lille, cheered on by locals and joined by a barefoot child, a powerful symbol of innocence amidst destruction. War had become deeply personal. Finally, 22 infantry marching through Ypres shows troops marching past the shattered remains of Ypres. Trees stand like ghosts. Ruins flank their path. The world had changed irrevocably. Mobilization wasn't just military. It was emotional, human, and total. As World War I ignited, cavalry units from around the world began their solemn march to the front lines. In 6 Indian Cavalry in Europe battle, Indian soldiers ride in disciplined formation, symbols of Britain's global reach, their lances raised with dignity on foreign soil. In 7 Germany Cavalry 1914, German horsemen charged through dust-choked roads, their rifles and sabers ready. embodying the old-world valor that would soon collide with industrial warfare. Finally, 18 carrying ammunition captures a silhouetted convoy of riders and supply wagons at dusk, the rhythmic clatter of hooves marking the steady advance toward battle. The cavalry's era was ending, but their journey had just begun. As World War I escalated, naval warfare embraced innovation. In 13 USS Nebraska and 17 aircraft carrier Dazzle Camo, massive warships set sail cloaked in bold Dazzle camouflage. These jagged patterns confused enemy rangefinders, turning steel giants into optical illusions. It was not invisibility they sought, but deception at sea, a new weapon in total war. Amid the horrors of World War I, moments of humanity and resilience shone through. In one scene, French soldiers stand in a relaxed group, their weary faces softened by pride, their coats heavy with medals of valor. In another, German soldiers celebrate Christmas. A fleeting peace unfolds, as men once at war now share drink and laughter under winter trees. Meanwhile, the colored troops entertain, joy bridging racial divides, as black and white soldiers find unity in laughter and storytelling. And on the Kaiser's birthday, German officers raise their legs in cheerful rhythm, celebrating far from home. Even in war, life persisted. In the chaos of World War I, every moment was a test of endurance and innovation. Soldiers crouched beneath shattered trees, aiming Lewis guns skyward to shoot down enemy planes. Massive shells were rolled from trucks under the watch of weary men, and one faithful dog. In darkened ruins, machine gunners waited, eyes sharp beneath steel helmets. Mortar crews braved the mud, loading heavy rounds into crude trench launchers, their hands numb from cold and fear. These were the unseen rhythms of war, loading, aiming, firing, waiting. Amid the destruction, these men formed a human chain of resilience, holding the line inch by inch. Behind the front lines of World War I, life persisted amid ruin. A soldier lit his cigarette beside a makeshift kitchen built from broken bricks and battered tin, a small dog sniffing near scattered pots. In the trenches, men huddled around a map, studying orders by dim light, while mud clung to their boots. Some crouched in narrow dugouts, writing letters home or reading old ones, seeking comfort in words from afar. These moments of calm, planning, and routine were threads of sanity in the chaos. Beneath steel helmets and hardened stares, they held tight to fragments of normal life, waiting for the next call. Even in the midst of war, daily life found its rhythm. A French officer shared tea with British comrades at a rough wooden table. Simple hospitality, bridging nations amid chaos. In the streets, a soldier halted a civilian with bayonet drawn, tension and caution heavy in the air. Far from the front, a German military kitchen bustled with quiet labor. Cooks and nurses prepared meals with stern focus. These moments reveal another side of the war, less about gunfire, more about survival, connection, and duty. Between battles, it was the small acts of sharing food, commanding respect, and working together that kept soldiers grounded. In the midst of the devastation of World War I, the care for the wounded became a powerful testament to human compassion. Field hospitals, often set up in makeshift tents or ruined buildings, bustled with nurses in white Red Cross uniforms, tending to the injured with tireless dedication. Volunteers gently offered comfort, a sip of water, a whispered reassurance, even a lit cigarette to ease pain. The wounded were evacuated from the front lines on stretcher carts pulled by men and horses, grimacing through pain but still alive. Behind the carnage, quiet heroes stitched wounds and lifted spirits, keeping hope alive amidst ruin. In the shadow of war, women stepped into roles once unfamiliar, transforming society's expectations. At the lumberyard, they crafted wooden huts with precision and grit, their hands shaping shelter for troops. Elsewhere, a determined mechanic serviced a war-worn car, ensuring mobility near the Western Front. Children, too young to understand the gravity of absence, marched joyfully, their innocence preserved by caregivers. Deep behind the lines, telephone operators, known as the Hello Girls, linked command posts, their voices a lifeline between chaos and coordination. Each scene reveals courage, not just on the battlefield, but in every corner touched by the reach of World War I. Amid the final waves of World War I, the tide turned. Thousands of weary German prisoners stood shoulder to shoulder, their eyes hollow, yet relieved as the war neared its end. Soldiers from many nations, exhausted but proud, marched past cheering civilians in ruined towns. The roads, once paved with fear, now echoed with hope as Allied forces advanced. African American troops, returning home victorious, beamed with pride, proof of valor in a segregated world. The war's human cost was staggering, but in those final marches and tearful returns, a common truth was clear. Survival was triumph, and peace was finally in sight. The reach of World War I. As the Great War finally ended, joy erupted through the weary streets like a long-held breath finally released. Crowds surged forward, waving papers and hats high above heads, their cheers echoing off stone buildings. Children clung to vehicles, laughing and celebrating with soldiers returning home. Men in uniform were no longer just fighters. They were symbols of hope restored. Women and men alike filled the streets in spontaneous parades, tears and smiles blending under the mist of a rain-washed sky. After years of sacrifice and loss, peace had a face, and it was painted with the joy of reunion and the promise of tomorrow.